If we're trying to turn our family into a multi-generational team on mission, should we just move close to our parents?
We've spent the last several months traveling the country looking for where to live next.
More than one person has asked, why don't you just move to wherever you have the most family? And it's a good question because moving close to family would definitely have some big benefits.
We definitely set out with the goal of moving somewhere that was relatively accessible to both of our families, at least to the degree that's possible when they're, thousands of miles apart.
Yeah, we've definitely had it as a priority in our planning to figure out how to maintain ties with our families.
Mm-hmm. But there were also strategic reasons why we felt like the places our parents live might not be the best fit.
Yeah, where my parents live in Southern California, it'd be hard for us to afford living there, let alone our kids and their kids, although people obviously figure out ways to make it work.
Yeah. My parents live in a pretty small town called Ripon, Wisconsin. It's only about 8,000 people. It's about 90 minutes away from any decent-sized airport. And in their case, we were concerned that living in Ripon would leave us more prone to our kids moving away when they got older compared to if we lived near a bigger city.
You can watch our whole video about our strategy for deciding where to live if you haven't already seen that. But while we were actually in the first city that we visited, Denver, I had the question arise in my head during a prayer time, what about Ripon? Should we be giving that some more serious consideration? And as time went on, Ripon continued to sort of just bubble up in our minds as like a place that we should really consider as an option, which was very much outside of the scope of our strategic thinking at the time, but just kind of kept coming up.
Yeah.
Sort of related to this, at one point in our travels, we sort of realized that Trisha and I had some different hopes for the kind of neighborhood where we would end up living, and often it was a little bit tricky to find a place that really appealed to both of us.
Yeah, I tended to be attracted to places that were like really low crime, they felt super safe, had bigger yards, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I tended to be more attracted to places that felt kind of like historic and really had a charm to them. High walkability, community feel with neighbors, easy access to lots of things to do in the city.
I think we both liked all of those things too. It was just kind of our top priorities were a little bit different. So finding places that felt like they really catered to both of our top desires was proving to be a little bit tricky.
Often in a neighborhood that I would really like, you'd kind of start to feel like, oh, this feels like maybe not super safe like I'd want, or the yards feel a little cramped.
Right. And a place I really liked, it often felt kind of cookie cutter to you, or like it was lacking a whole lot of charm, which I understood.
Yeah, and at some point it kind of clicked that Ripon actually offers a pretty solid combination of these different things.
It's safe, it's walkable to a cute downtown, it has pretty big yards overall, there's historic charm, the small town feel makes it pretty easy to connect with people.
And looming large over all of those benefits is the fact that a ton of Trisha's extended family lives in and around Ripon. So a pretty solid combination overall.
Yeah. For a while, we kept coming back to the fact that Ripon was so far from any big metro area.
Yeah, we wondered, what are our kids going to do for work in Ripon? Or are there going to be enough people around for them to find great spouses? Or are they going to wind up moving 45 or 90 minutes away like a lot of Trisha's cousins have ended up doing?
But even with those challenges, over time, we still felt like there was enough right about Ripon that we really wanted to give it a serious chance.
Yeah, and we started to wonder as it continued to pop up in our heads, is God leading us somehow to unexpectedly end up in Ripon?
Right.
So we wanted to leave open the possibility of that happening.
Yeah. This was all sort of coming together in our minds over the course of traveling to different cities. So by the time we were wrapping up Cincinnati, which was our fifth city, we pretty much narrowed it down at that point to either Cincinnati or Ripon.
Yeah. Two really different places with pretty different strengths. And once we narrowed it down to those two, it was about a month or so that we were really stuck.
Yeah. Fortunately, before we even knew Ripon would be a contender in our minds, we were already planning to stay with my parents in Ripon as our next stop after Cincinnati.
So we had some time to consider Ripon while we were in Ripon, which was really helpful. During that time of deliberation in Ripon, we really became pretty hungry to hear from God, maybe even a little desperate. It just felt like these two paths were so different from one another, and we really just found ourselves wishing that God would just tell us clearly where to go. Perhaps the toughest part was knowing that either choice that we made would end up disappointing certain people, and feeling responsible for that was hard.
We started rhythms of fasting, praying, and journaling more intensely than in our normal routine, really hoping that God would speak and lead us.
For a while, it really just felt like God was making us wait. And that was kind of hard, but eventually we did start to feel more of a sense of direction and calling.
Yeah.
One theme that came to our attention more and more as we were trying to make this decision was how each of these two places would shape our family.
We realized that one of the reasons we were so drawn to Ripon was because it felt easier. It felt like the safer choice.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to imagine what life would look like in Ripon. It included lots of help, lots of time with your family, lots of relationships that were already existing that we could lean into, and really affordable housing and cost of living in general.
In contrast, it was a lot harder to imagine the details of day-to-day life in Cincinnati because we just didn't know it as well. We connected with a lot of acquaintances there, but we didn't really know what that would look like to form deeper relationships in that context.
But what we did know was that there were lots of families in Cincinnati that we wanted to learn from and partner with. There were people who had already traveled the road that we're trying to travel.
As time went on, we started feeling like Cincinnati was the right next step for our family.
Yeah, and it culminated for me in one morning of prayer where I finally felt like I really heard something clear from God. I felt like God said to me, moving to Cincinnati will bring big challenges, and there will be times where it feels really hard. But if you follow me in the midst of it, I'll bless your family through it.
Bless you.
There was a piece of wisdom that we heard from Jeremy Pryor, no less, that we found really helpful in the final stages of making our decision, though Jeremy wasn't really speaking to our direct situation.
Right.
He said that when he's facing a major life decision, big fork in the road, and he's not feeling a strong sense of calling from God, that he prays to God, God, I'm going to make the best, wisest decision that I can with what I see in front of me. And if it's not what you want, then please stop me. Mm-hmm. Open and close doors until I get on the path where you want me. And that was really helpful to us because even though we felt like we were starting to get a sense of affirmation from God on choosing Cincinnati, we'd be lying if we said that we felt 100% confident that this is definitely where God is calling us or something like that.
Yeah, I'd say it's more like we feel like God could bless our family anywhere, but Cincinnati is where we feel the greatest sense of calling.
Over the course of about a week or so, our leaning became a decision. And now we're basically implementing Jeremy's prayer and praying, God, we are going to choose to go to Cincinnati because it seems like the best, wisest decision in front of us. And if it's not what you want from us, God, then please stop us and put us on the path where you want us. And now we're actually lined up to close on a house tomorrow as we're filming this. So far, God hasn't stopped us.
Yeah, I'd say this whole process and the unexpected twist of Ripon becoming a serious contender has served to humble our decision a little bit.
Yeah, I think we set out 6 months ago hoping to find where we're going to set out roots for the rest of our lives and everything. And now I think it's a little more like maybe Cincinnati's where we'll spend the rest of our lives, or maybe it's a place where we'll go and learn some stuff for a while and then God will send us somewhere else. It's hard to say, but a little more of an open hand on this decision now, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that was actually really freeing. It was something we kind of talked about in Cincinnati a little bit of like, this was our plan. Like, we're going to figure out where we're going to be forever. And I think, that would still be our ultimate intention is like to try to be somewhere long term. But at the same time, like, we're like, we don't have to find where we're going to be forever. We just need to take the next step. And that feels like Cincinnati. If you've been following along with our journey, thanks for being part of it with us.
Yeah, it's been fun to share the texture of our travels with our friends and family who've been watching. And if you're one of our great-great-grandkids watching this video, then we are especially glad that you're watching.
So for moving to Cincinnati, what's our solution for finding a neighborhood that we both like?
What could it be? Well, it might be a while because we've got a move to execute and a baby to have in April. So we've got a full plate coming up, but eventually we'll try to make a video about the little town 10 minutes from downtown Cincinnati that checked all of our boxes.